The first time Audrey Holloway flirted with me, I was on my knees under her mother's kitchen sink, holding a wrench in one hand and trying not to look like a man who had just forgotten how plumbing worked. My name is Adam Rivera. I was 32, single, and running a small handyman business out of a white van that smelled like sawdust, coffee, and one very judgmental air freshener shaped like a pine tree. That Thursday afternoon was supposed to be simple. Mrs. Holloway from two houses down had called me because her sink was leaking into the cabinet. "Adam, honey," she said over the phone, "I hate to bother you, but I've got water dripping into a mixing bowl and I've already used all my good towels." Mrs. Holloway was 61, widowed, sweet, and the kind of woman who could make you feel guilty for accepting payment because she always sent you home with banana bread. I told her I'd be over in 20 minutes. At that point in my life, I liked simple jobs. Loose faucet, clogged drain, door hinge, dryer vent. Things with clear problems and clear solutions. People, on the other hand, were not my specialty. I'd been divorced for 2 years, which sounds dramatic until you learn the marriage only lasted 11 months. My ex, Natalie, told me I was dependable, kind, hardworking, and impossible to feel close to. That one stuck with me more than the divorce papers, so I became very good at fixing things that didn't ask me how I felt. Mrs. Holloway's house sat at the end of Maple Street, pale yellow with white shutters and flower boxes she changed by season. When she opened the door, she had reading glasses on top of her head and flour on one cheek. "There's my hero," she said. "I haven't touched the sink yet. You answered the phone. Around here, that counts." She led me into the kitchen where a silver bowl sat under the pipes catching steady drops. I set my toolbox down, opened the cabinet doors, and started inspecting the trap. "Looks like the compression nut loosened," I said. "Probably a quick fix." "That's what my husband used to say about everything," she said, smiling softly. Then, 3 hours later, he'd be sweating and blaming the manufacturer. I promised to blame gravity first. She laughed and went back to rolling dough at the counter while I worked. For about 10 minutes, everything was normal. Then the front door opened. "Mom?" a woman's voice called. "Kitchen," Mrs. Holloway answered. Two sets of footsteps came down the hall. I glanced out from under the sink and saw them. The Holloway twins. I knew Mrs. Holloway had daughters, of course. She talked about them often. Audrey was finishing a design internship downtown, and Paige had just started working nights at a physical therapy clinic while taking classes. I'd seen old graduation photos on the mantle. Old photos had not prepared me for the real thing. They were 23, both tall, both dark-haired, both with the kind of confidence that made a room rearrange itself around them. Paige came in first, wearing scrubs under a denim jacket, bright-eyed and grinning like she already knew the punchline to a joke no one had told yet. Audrey followed behind her in a cream sweater and jeans, quieter, carrying a sketch tube under one arm. She had the same face as her sister almost, but where Paige was sunlight hitting glass, Audrey was candlelight in a quiet room. That was the dangerous one. Mrs. Holloway beamed. "Girls, this is Adam from down the street. He's saving us from indoor flooding." Paige leaned against the counter. "Hi, Adam from down the street." Audrey's eyes flicked to my wrench, then to my face. "You always fix sinks in a button-down shirt?" I looked down at myself. Blue work shirt, sleeves rolled, small stain near the pocket from old pipe grease. "It's my formal plumbing attire." Paige laughed. Audrey smiled like she was trying not to. That smile did something inconvenient to my common sense. I turned back toward the cabinet quickly because there are moments in a man's life when professionalism is not just a virtue, it is a survival tactic. Mrs. Holloway dusted flour off her hands. "I need to run next door and ask Carol if she still has my pie plate. Girls, don't bother Adam." "Wouldn't dream of it," Paige said. Mrs. Holloway gave them a mother's look, then left through the side door. The kitchen got very quiet. Too quiet. I tightened the nut, tested the pipe, and pretended I could not feel both of them watching me. Audrey stepped closer. "You're nervous." "I'm focused." "That's not what nervous people call it." Paige crouched near the cabinet, chin in her hand. "He's definitely nervous." "I'm holding a wrench under pressurized water," I said. "Respect the danger." Audrey leaned down just enough that I caught the clean scent of vanilla and rain on her sweater. Then she and Paige exchanged a look. A terrible look. The kind of look twins must develop in the womb specifically to ruin a man's afternoon. Paige smiled first. Audrey's smile came slower. Then both of them leaned closer, their voices dropping to a whisper. Our bed is broken too. For one full second, my brain stopped accepting new information. The pipe under the sink chose that exact moment to spit a thin stream of cold water directly onto my collar. Paige burst out laughing. Audrey covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. I jerked back, smacked my head on the underside of the cabinet, and muttered something that was almost a prayer and almost not. Careful, Audrey said, though her eyes were dancing. You'll hurt yourself. I was doing great, I said, rubbing the back of my head, until the furniture report. Paige tilted her head. Furniture report? You said your bed was broken. Our bed frame, Audrey clarified, smiling too innocently. At our apartment, Paige nodded. It makes a horrible sound. I stared at the sink pipes like they had betrayed me personally. Lots of furniture makes noise, I said carefully. Exactly, Paige said. That's why we need a professional opinion. Audrey folded her arms. Unless you only handle sinks. There it was, a challenge. I had built decks in July heat, rewired ceiling fans with hornets in the attic, and once removed a raccoon from a chimney using nothing but gloves, a moving blanket, and poor judgment. I was not going to be undone by two pretty women and a wobbly bed frame. I handle bed frames, I said. Paige grinned. Good to know. The way she said it made my wrench feel heavier. I slid back under the sink, tightened the compression nut, then dried the joint with a rag and waited. No drip. I turned the faucet on, still dry. Sink's fixed, I said, grateful to stand up. Audrey handed me a towel before I could reach for one. You're wet. Occupational hazard. Mom will insist you eat something now, Paige warned. As if summoned, Mrs. Holloway returned through the side door holding a pie plate and a small gossip storm. Carol says hello and also that her nephew is single, which I told her was not helpful to anyone. She stopped, noticing my damp collar. Oh, honey, did the sink fight back? The sink lost, I said. My daughters didn't bother you, did they? No, I said too fast. Paige's eyebrows lifted. Audrey looked down, smiling. Mrs. Holloway narrowed her eyes. Girls. We asked about our bed, Paige said. Their mother sighed like she had raised two beautiful tornadoes and accepted responsibility years ago. The bed frame at their apartment is falling apart. I told them to buy a new one. It's not falling apart, Audrey said. It's emotionally distressed. It squeaks when you breathe near it, Paige added. Mrs. Holloway turned to me. Would you mind looking at it sometime? I'll pay you, of course. Sure, I said. I can stop by after I finish a job tomorrow. Paige leaned a hip against the counter. Tomorrow evening? Depends where the apartment is. 10 minutes away, Audrey said, above the bakery on Cooper. I knew the place. Old building, crooked floors, great cinnamon rolls. 6? I asked. 6 is perfect, Audrey said. Something about the way she said perfect made me suddenly interested in the toolbox latch. Mrs. Holloway wrapped half a loaf of banana bread in foil despite my protests, then paid me more than the job was worth. I tried to give some back. She pushed my hand away. You're a good man, Adam. Let people be kind to you once in a while. That hit closer than I expected. I thanked her, gathered my tools, and headed for the door. Paige walked me out to the porch. Audrey followed, quieter, staying just behind her sister. See you tomorrow, Paige said. About the bed frame. I replied. Of course. Audrey stepped forward then, her smile softer now. We really do need it fixed. I believe you. Her eyes held mine a beat too long. Do you? Before I could answer, Mrs. Holloway called from inside. Girls, stop distracting the poor man. Paige laughed. Audrey's smile widened. I escaped to my van with banana bread under one arm and the strange feeling that tomorrow's repair job would not be simple at all. The next day, I arrived at Cooper Street at 5:58 with my toolbox, a cordless drill, and a stern reminder to myself. Fix the bed frame, collect payment, leave. No weirdness, no overthinking, No getting tangled up in smiles, perfume, or whatever had happened in Mrs. Holloway's kitchen. Their apartment sat above Bellamy Bakery, up a narrow stairwell that smelled like sugar, yeast, and old brick. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Paige stood there in black leggings and an oversized college sweatshirt, hair twisted into a messy knot. "You're early," she said. 2 minutes. That counts. She stepped aside and called over her shoulder, "Audrey, the professional is here." "I heard," Audrey called back. The apartment was small but warm, with slanted floors and tall windows facing the street. There were mismatched bookshelves, plants in chipped ceramic pots, and 2 coffee mugs abandoned on the table like evidence. Audrey emerged from the hallway wearing paint-splattered jeans and a soft green sweater. Her hair was pinned up with a pencil, and somehow that was worse for my concentration than anything she could have planned. "Hi, Adam," she said. "Hi." Paige looked between us and smiled in a way I did not appreciate. "So," I said, clearing my throat. "The bed frame?" "This way," Paige said. They led me down a short hall to the bedroom. Singular. I stopped at the doorway. Inside were 2 twin beds pushed against opposite walls. One was neatly made with a gray quilt and stacked pillows. The other looked like someone had wrestled a blanket and lost. Paige pointed at the messy one. "Mine." Audrey pointed to the neat one. "Hers." I exhaled before I could stop myself. Paige caught it immediately. "Were you worried, Adam?" "No." Audrey leaned against the doorframe beside me. "He was worried." "I inspect all rooms with the same level of concern," I said. "Very professional," Paige said. Her bed frame was old iron, probably rescued from a thrift store. One corner had separated from the side rail and the center support was bent enough to make the mattress sag. I knelt to examine it, grateful for something mechanical to focus on. "This frame's missing 2 bolts," I said. Paige crossed her arms. "That explains the noise. Also the leaning." Audrey crouched across from me, close enough that her knee nearly touched mine. "Can you fix it?" "Probably. I'll need to brace the center support." Paige flopped onto Audrey's bed. "He says probably like a man who wants us to worry." "I say probably because old frames enjoy surprises." Audrey smiled. "So do old apartments." For the next 20 minutes, I worked while they hovered in the doorway, asking questions that were half practical and half designed to see if I would drop a screw. Paige was easy with her teasing, bright and fearless. Audrey was quieter, but her attention felt heavier. When she asked something, she listened to the answer. When I shifted positions, she noticed. When Paige wandered to the kitchen to check her phone, Audrey stayed. "You don't have to watch," I said, tightening a bracket. "I know." I glanced up. "Then why are you?" She shrugged, but her smile faded a little. "Because you seem like the kind of person who fixes everything and then disappears before anyone can thank you properly." The drill went still in my hand. "That's specific." "My mom likes you," she said. "She says you're kind but hard to read. Your mom should run a background check service." Audrey laughed softly. "She also says you looked sad when she mentioned my dad." I turned back to the frame. "Your mother notices a lot." "She does." There was a quieter silence then. Not awkward, just honest. "My ex used to say I was like a locked garage," I said before I knew I was saying it. "Useful, full of tools, impossible to get into." Audrey didn't make a joke. That's a mean thing to call someone. She wasn't trying to be mean. Still. I looked at her then. Her eyes were steady, warm, curious without being nosy. It had been a long time since someone looked at me like I wasn't a problem to solve or a wall to climb. From the kitchen, Paige called, "If you two are having a deep conversation, make sure it ends with the bed fixed." Audrey rolled her eyes. "She has terrible timing." "Maybe excellent timing," I said, because my heart had started doing something inconvenient again. Audrey's smile returned, smaller this time. When I finished, I pressed down on the mattress. No squeak, no sag. Paige came back, tested it with a dramatic bounce, and clapped. "Magic!" "Bolts," I corrected. Audrey ran her hand along the repaired rail. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Paige picked up her purse from the dresser. "I'm grabbing dinner downstairs." "Audrey, pay the man." Then she winked at me and disappeared out the door. Audrey and I were alone. Again. And this time, neither of us pretended not to notice. The apartment felt different after Paige left. Quieter. Not empty exactly, because the bakery downstairs still hummed through the floorboards and traffic murmured beyond the windows. But the room had narrowed somehow until it was just Audrey, me, and the small metal cash box she pulled from the top of her dresser. "How much do we owe you?" she asked. "For the frame?" I wiped my hands on a rag. 40. She gave me a look. "Adam." "What? You drove over, brought parts, fixed a bed frame old enough to qualify for a pension, and you want $40? The bolts were cheap. My mother warned me you'd do this." "Do what?" "Undervalue yourself." I looked away first. That was becoming a bad habit around Audrey Holloway. She counted out bills anyway, folded them once, and held them toward me. 75. "Audrey." "Take it. It wasn't a hard job." "Maybe not for you." I hesitated, then accepted the money. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Neither of us moved. Her bedroom was soft in the evening light, all muted greens and charcoal gray, with sketches pinned above her desk and a half-finished painting propped near the window. It showed the rooftops of Cooper Street at sunrise, but she had made the colors warmer than real life. Kinder. "You painted that?" I asked. She followed my gaze. "Started it. I keep changing my mind." "Looks finished to me." "That's because you're practical." "And you're not?" "I'm practical when I have to be." She stepped closer to the painting, tilting her head. "But I like leaving room for things to become something else." I didn't know what to say to that. Audrey turned back toward me. "You always this quiet when people compliment your work?" "Only when they're standing very close." She glanced down, noticed the space between us, then looked up with a slow smile. "Am I?" "Close enough." For once, she didn't tease me. She just held my gaze. My phone buzzed in my pocket, saving me and annoying me at the same time. I checked it. A message from Mrs. Holloway. Did my girls behave? I almost laughed. Audrey arched a brow. "My mom?" "She asked if you behaved." "And what will you tell her?" I typed. "Perfectly." Audrey read it upside down and smiled. "Liar." "Diplomat." She laughed, and the sound loosened something in my chest. I packed my drill and closed the toolbox. "I should go." "Should you?" There it was again. That simple question that didn't feel simple at all. I took a breath. "Audrey, I'm not trying to be rude." "I know. And I'm not pretending I don't notice you." Her smile faded into something more honest. "Good. But your mom is my neighbor. You're her daughter. I came here for a repair job. And now the repair job is done. Technically." She folded her arms, amused. "You're very committed to technicalities. They've kept me alive." Audrey stepped to the doorway, not blocking me, just standing there like she wanted me to decide whether to leave or stay. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "If Paige hadn't been here, and if my mom weren't your neighbor, would you still be trying this hard to run away?" The question landed squarely. I could have lied. A year ago, I probably would have. Instead, I said, "Yes." Her face changed. I added quickly, "But not because of you." Audrey leaned back against the doorframe. "Then why?" I looked at the toolbox in my hand, at the scratches in the handle, at the evidence of years spent being useful instead of brave. "Because I'm good at fixing things," I said. "I'm not always good at keeping them." For a moment, she was silent. Then she crossed the room and picked up a business card from my open toolbox. "One of mine, Rivera Repairs. No job too small." She turned it over and wrote something on the back. When she handed it to me, I saw her number. "No pressure," she said. "No games, no weird twin ambush." I raised an eyebrow. "Fine," she said. "Minimal ambush." I laughed despite myself. She smiled. "Call me if you want to, not because something is broken." I slipped the card into my shirt pocket. That might be a first. "Good." From the hallway, the front door opened. Paige's voice rang out. "I brought sandwiches, and if anything romantic happened without me narrating it, I'm going to be furious." Audrey closed her eyes. "My sister is a punishment from a past life." I picked up my toolbox, smiling. But before I could leave, Paige appeared holding a paper bag, looked at my face, then at Audrey's, and froze. "Oh," she said softly. For once, she didn't joke, and that made me more nervous than all her teasing combined. Paige stood in the hallway with sandwiches in one hand and an expression I couldn't read. Then she looked at Audrey. Really looked. Whatever silent twin language passed between them, it changed the air in the room. Paige's grin softened into something protective, almost tender. "Well," she said, lifting the paper bag, "I got turkey, roast beef, and one vegetarian because Audrey pretends she doesn't steal my fries." Audrey blinked. "That's all you're saying?" "For now." Paige looked at me. "But if you hurt her, I know where your van is parked." "Paige," Audrey warned. "What?" "I'm being welcoming." I nodded solemnly. "Very welcoming." "Slightly criminal, but welcoming." Paige pointed at me. "Good. He understands." We ate sandwiches at their little kitchen table while the city turned blue outside the windows. Paige did most of the talking, filling every awkward silence before it could grow teeth. Audrey sat across from me, quiet but smiling, her bare foot tucked under her chair, her eyes meeting mine now and then, like a secret being handed back and forth. When I finally left, Audrey walked me downstairs. The bakery was closed, but the warm smell of cinnamon still lingered in the stairwell. At the bottom step, she said, "You don't have to call." "I know. I mean it. I don't want you to feel cornered." I looked at her, at the woman who had teased me under a sink, challenged me in a bedroom, then somehow seen the locked parts of me without trying to force them open. "I don't feel cornered," I said. "I feel noticed." Her face softened. "Is that bad?" "No," I said. "Just new." Audrey smiled. "New can be good." I didn't kiss her that night. I wanted to. I think she knew I wanted to, but instead, I reached into my pocket, touched the card with her number on it, and said, "I'll call you." She nodded once. "Okay?" And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. I called her the next evening. Our first date was coffee from the bakery downstairs and a walk along the river that turned into dinner because neither of us wanted to say goodbye. Our second date was supposed to be a movie, but we spent the whole night talking in my driveway beside my van, laughing over cold takeout while the porch light buzzed above us. Paige appointed herself emotional safety inspector, which mostly meant she showed up uninvited, stole leftovers, and gave me dramatic warnings while secretly rooting for us. Mrs. Holloway pretended to be surprised when Audrey and I became serious, but she had the satisfied look of a woman who had known exactly what she was doing from the first leaky sink. 6 months later, Audrey painted over my garage workbench while I built her a proper studio table. She said the light in there was perfect. I said the floor sloped. She said that made it honest. A year after that night, I fixed the railing on Mrs. Holloway's porch while Audrey sat on the steps sketching me like I was something worth keeping. Paige arrived with coffee, inspected my work, and declared it acceptable husband material. Audrey laughed. I nearly dropped the drill. By the following spring, there was a ring in my toolbox, tucked between a tape measure and a box of brass screws. I proposed in Mrs. Holloway's kitchen right beside the sink that had started everything. Audrey cried before I finished asking. Paige cried louder. Mrs. Holloway stood at the counter with both hands over her mouth, flour on her cheek again, smiling like the house itself had been repaired. And later, when Audrey and I moved into a small place with crooked floors and too many windows, I built our bed frame myself. Solid oak, no squeaks, no wobble, no broken parts. On our first night there, Audrey sat cross-legged on the quilt while I tightened the last bolt. She leaned close, her smile as mischievous as the day we met, and whispered, "Our bed is broken too." I laughed so hard I had to sit down beside her. Then she rested her head on my shoulder, and in the quiet glow of our unfinished room, with paint cans in the corner and moonlight across the floor, I finally understood that some things aren't meant to be fixed and forgotten. Some things are meant to be built carefully every day by hand. If you heard the twins whisper, "Our bed is broken too," and stayed to see what really needed fixing, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. What would you have done if something like, "I fixed my neighbor's sink"? Then the twins whispered, Our bed is broken too happen to you? And have you ever mistaken kindness for something your heart was too afraid to name? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.